In this week's San Diego Market Matters, everyone's talking about the big shift to a buyer's market. But here's the twist. According to Redfin, San Diego's one of those cities that's supposedly one that shifted to a buyer's market, yet prices are flat. If supply is rising, why aren't prices falling?
Great question.
And Realtor.com says that payments have leveled off. Sounds calming until you realize they've leveled off at nearly double what they used to be. And they're locking out thousands out of home ownership. The question is, are you going to be one of them?
I don't know what to say.
Both these topics covered in this week's San Diego Market Matters, and I'm Karl Kyler, your San Diego realtor. Let's dig into this. Across the country, the balance of power in real estate is quietly shifting. According to Redfin, there are now 37% more sellers than there are buyers nationwide. This is one of the widest gaps we've seen in over a decade and a textbook definition for a buyer's market. Dramatic? Yes, but like most housing headlines, the story gets more interesting when you look at where it's actually happening. Austin, Texas is leading the charge as the strongest buyer's market in the entire country with over twice as many sellers as buyers. Florida cities like Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm aren't far behind. These are markets where builders spent the last few years throwing up new homes as fast as possible, and now they've got more inventory than demand can absorb. As a matter of fact, of the top 10 buyers markets identified by Redfin, 8 of them are in Texas and Florida. The other 2 that made the top 10 list, Nashville, Tennessee, and Las Vegas, Nevada, both of which I'm sure you're not surprised to hear made the top 10.
Yeah, of course.
Here in San Diego, we're technically listed as a buyer's market as well, ranked 31 out of the top 50. Sellers outnumber buyers by about 19% as per Redfin. Now, I'm not sure that I agree with their data, but we're gonna run with it for the sake of argument. Despite this so-called buyer's market, prices are flat. Our median sales price is holding around $900,000 with a 0% year-over-year price growth. So how is that even possible? Great question. While builders were flooding states like Texas and Florida with new homes, we spent the last decade doing the exact opposite. State mandates say San Diego should build 108,000 new units between 2021 and 2029. But so far, we've only approved about 34,000. That means we're short nearly 74,000 homes, and to catch up, we need to build almost 15,000 homes a year for the next 5 years. Now, we've never even come close to that since the turn of the century to build that many homes in San Diego. Last year's total was just under 9,000, and that was one of our biggest years since the 1980s. So it's no surprise that even with more sellers than buyers, we're not seeing these price corrections like these other places. You can't have a flood when there's barely enough water to fill the pool.
I don't know what to say to that.
What we're seeing instead is a shift in leverage, not value. Buyers are starting to negotiate stronger terms, things like temporary rate buydowns, solar payoffs, HOA credits, closing cost credits, and major repair concessions instead of asking for steep price cuts. Now you have to remember that affordability doesn't just affect buyers, it affects sellers as well. A lot of homeowners are sitting on record equity and 3 to 4% mortgage rates. To justify selling and buying something else at 6 or 7%, they need to hit a specific number for their sale. And if they can't, they're just gonna wait. So we may have more sellers on the market, but that doesn't make all of them actually legit sellers. Many of them have their home on the market with the mentality of,
well, if we get our price, then we'll move. If not, we're just gonna chill.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Bottom line, yes, San Diego is technically a buyer's market as per the Redfin data, but it's not a discount market. Prices have flattened, they've not fallen, and that's a good thing. It means that the market's finally stabilized after years of volatility. If you're a buyer, this is a window for you to negotiate while others sit on the sidelines and hesitate. And if you're a seller, the key is strategy, not stubbornness, because this version of a buyer's market still rewards the homes that show well and are priced right. Now, let's jump into the Realtor.com's recent report on down payments and how it might be locking out buyers from the market. Realtor.com's latest report shows that down payments have basically leveled off, holding around 14% of the purchase price, or roughly just over $34,000 nationally. And we're gonna come back to this number, so take note of that.
Yes. Note taken.
Now that's almost identical to last year and only slightly above the pandemic era averages. But even though the numbers look flat, the story behind them tells us a lot about who's still buying homes and who's not.
To whom are you referring?
Down payments are steady because the market's thinned itself out. Prices are high, rates are high, and the only buyers left are the ones who can actually afford both. The typical home buyer today has a credit score around 735, one of the highest averages in over a decade, and definitely a selling feature that they should be putting on their dating app profiles. Now, this is a big clue. What this report is really showing is a housing market that's shifted towards financially strong, higher income buyers who can write big checks and weather the costs that have priced everybody else out.
Oh man, this is so messed up.
Realtor.com also notes that homes over $750,000 now make up a growing share of national sales, while lower price homes are falling behind. That shift alone is keeping down payments looking more stable on paper because the pool of active buyers is dominated by those who already have equity, wealth, or both. Now, when we zoom in on San Diego, that story hits even harder. Our market is pretty much flattened out. Detached home prices are sitting just over $1 million, attached homes are sitting around $670,000. Barely a blip of movement year over year. And that tells us demand is still strong enough to hold values steady even with everything working against affordability. But here's the real issue, coming back to that number I mentioned earlier. 14% of $1 million median price in San Diego isn't $30,000. It's more like $140,000. That's what a typical down payment looks like here. It's pricing out a massive portion of would-be buyers. Before the pandemic, plenty of people could scrape together 3 to 5% down and still afford a payment based on prices and rates back then. Today, with higher rates and higher costs across the board, it's just not realistic. Even though our market is stable, the barrier to entry keeps climbing. And that's why you're seeing fewer first-time buyers and more repeat or equity-rich buyers driving what little activity we have going on here. The result is a market that's quietly cutting out the middle. First-time buyers, young families, and moderate earners are getting squeezed out, while more established buyers, people with equity, high credit, and bigger savings, these are the ones that are keeping the numbers alive. It's not that affordability pressures are lingering like the headline says, they're defining who even gets to play in the game. So what's the takeaway from all of this? More and more people will never own a home in San Diego. They'll be forever renters, unless they move somewhere else, get a fat inheritance, or line up the perfect lotto numbers. And that means as more people settle into that reality, demand for renters will only keep growing. Hint, hint. And that's a wrap for this week's San Diego Market Matters. If you found this information valuable, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for weekly updates on the San Diego real estate market. And if you're considering buying or selling property here in San Diego, don't hesitate to reach out to me for expert advice tailored to your needs. As always, I'm Karl Kyler, your San Diego realtor. I'll see you next video.